Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for the second session of the book club on the survivor paradox, in case you don't know exactly what we're talking about. And I planned a lot for today. Last time I covered only some of what I planned, and I assume it'll be the same for today. And I apologize if some of the information is a bit dense, but I want to share more of the insight and things that are beyond what is written in the book or things that are written in between the lines. So again, as a basic foundation, as a basic setup, as a basic creating of the environment. When we're in a survival mode, when we watch, when we are alert, we use our senses, we use our head, we use our analysis, we use our suspicion, and we use our self-clinging, which gives rise to reactivity, to suspicion, to doubt, to different emotions. So we want to kind of take a deep breath and just let go of it. Take another deep breath. Feel all the light surrounding you, and you come down to your heart, and you can put your hand on your heart. And just feel the warmth of the heart. Connect with the heart. Feel this warmth spreading throughout your chest. Feel the warmth going to your flanks, to your sides, to your lower back, to the areas of the kidney and adrenals, which you can feel how the heat go there and warms it up. And to your liver in the right upper quadrant. That your heart guides the energy there. To your heart, the heart is nourishing the heart. And the heart now is nourishing the digestive system. Pancreas, a little bit above the belly button. And feeling your lungs. And just stay there with your heart opened. You are listening, you are present with your heart opened to receive any information that can be valuable for you, and feel the energy of the group and the healing power of being in a group with an intention to understand and melt the survivor paradox and open our door to our infinite healing potential. So with this in mind, I want to start the second part. Last time, we ended by talking about the metabolic aspect of the survival paradox. The survival paradox is an acute response. We're in danger. We feel that something is wrong. We're trying to deal with it. It can be an attack from the outside or from the inside of the cell. And what we do if it's from the outside, we change the receptors on the cell. We change the way what the cell takes in and puts out. And by changing the receptors on the cell, we change the wiring to different pathways. We open the gates to certain highways and we close the gates to other highways, which create a speedy, rapid, 100% faster production of energy, but at very low efficiency, like sprinting. And we are limited in the amount of time we can sprint. We move to glycolysis. And then if we go to a shift into a long-term survival, which mimics the state of starvation, we shift to starting to use alternate energies. We burn all the sugars, all the glucose in our liver, and then we start breaking down fatty tissues. We use ketone bodies, the basis for ketosis. And then we find out we have a lot of resources that are not glucose, carbohydrate related. They have certain byproducts, and they can last for a certain amount of time. And this diet is used in cancer therapy, in neurological issues, and some other issues, but it is still an alternate survival diet. If it was the best diet, we would have made it our regular diet. The body is smart. It wants survival and it wants longevity. That's why ketogenic diet is really an intermittent diet for a certain period of time. It's not a permanent diet. So putting this aside and putting a lot of more detail there in the book, I want to kind of skip the chapter on modified citrus pectin. It's pretty straightforward, but I just want to touch some highlights, like 2 or 3 highlights, literally in a minute or 2, because we have a lot more stuff to talk about. So modified citrus pectin blocks galectin-3. Galectin-3 is one of the key alarmins. It's a protein I call the survival protein. It's a survival paradox protein. And what it does, it gets activated when we are in a survival mode, when we are in injury mode and we try to repair. It's excreted by macrophage, the galectin-3, and it's excreted within minutes. Some of my original research that was funded by the NIH, I showed that in a sepsis model, when you create an infection in an animal that can be deadly, galectin-3 comes up before the cytokines in the cytokine storm, before interleukin-6. And when it's blocked with galectin-3 blocker with modified citrus pectin, it will actually attenuate, reduce the rise of interleukin-6, reduce the damage to the kidneys, and reduce mortality. Why? Because we are blocking the protein that starts the survival response that is expressed as an inflammatory response. It's like there's a problem in the field and we set the field on fire. But once the field is on fire, there is no more field. Everything got burned in the process. And galectin-3 is not very good at stopping. The body is not good at stopping the process. It does it better when we are young, when we are more agile, like a flexible rubber band, when we don't carry a lot of life experiences that twist and affects our fresh response, and when we don't have a lot of wear and tear in our system. So as we have more wear and tear, naturally galectin-3 goes up. So really, modified citrus pectin blocks galectin-3. And there was a question, the one question I saw was exactly what I'm talking about now. So it's nice, I'm kind of starting with it. Modified citrus pectin does not lower, does not remove galectin-3. It neutralizes its harmful effects. Once this effect reduces inflammation, reduces fibrosis, or removes heavy metals or other ligands that are driving inflammation. And in the book, I describe the process and the different ligands, different chemicals that are carried by galectin-3 in the body. Then naturally, there is less need for repair and galectin-3 goes down. And it can go down a little bit, and it can go down dramatic. For example, in my experience, when I went to the Himalayas to treat some high Buddhist masters, it was very high altitude, and I kind of got in trouble with lack of oxygen. And I had to be, had to be rushed down. They came back and I had palpitations, and really, it wasn't healthy for my heart and cardiovascular system. So it was 2014. My galectin-3 went up by about 60%. And then once I did therapeutic apheresis and was back on modified citrus pectin and took care of myself, and the palpitations that showed up went away, my galectin-3 went down to 11. So it's very dramatic. 50%, 40% is a lot. Galectin-3 also doesn't rise a lot like other markers, like other inflammatory markers, because it's an instigator. A small change, see this is a straight line, a small change at the top create a big difference at the bottom. Right, if you look at it from the bottom, going up, if this side is increased, a small increase ends up showing as a big difference. So this is a difference in C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, but galectin-3 can go up by just 50%. In our studies in pig sepsis, where we induce severe sepsis in pigs, they're going to a full septic shock in 45 minutes, where they have to be they're already intubated and they have to get medications and fluids until they are stabilized. When we remove galectin-3 with therapeutic apheresis, with the XGAL3, the column that I am developing for removal of galectin-3, which is going to be used in the intensive care unit. When we remove and we reduce it by only 40% compared to control, only 40%, we shut down the sepsis process. And of course, now that we have improved it and we can remove much more, we are very excited about it. But that's not the topic. That's to show how galectin-3 is an instigator. And why it's instigator? Because it initiates the survival response. It initiates it. As a response to our sympathetic response, as a response to our inherent tendency to hold, to grasp, and to react. The other thing that is unique about modified citrus pectin, a little bit unparalleled, is that the benefits of modified citrus pectin are not direct. For example, in cancer, it doesn't have a direct cytotoxicity. It doesn't kill the cancer directly. It allows the body to recalibrate. It allows the immune system to reset itself and to attack the cancer. And how does it manifest in research? You can see many herbs and many supplements where you look in a petri dish, what is called in vitro studies, and it kills 100% of cancer. You look at animal studies, it saves, 80% of the animals. You look at humans, no effect or helps 10% of the people. With modified citrus pectin, it's different. In the in vitro, in the petri dish with cancer cells, the inhibition is only 40 to 50%. In clinical trials, in biochemical relapse of prostate cancer, it benefits 80% of the people, even more in one way or another. And this is because of its connectivity, because of its ability to affect the galectin-3 pathways in so many ways. So this is a little bit about modified citrus pectin. I now want to take a little bit step back and look at the survival paradox and as survival as a journey in life. And as part of wanting to survive, one part that is talked about, the whole danger response, is how we respond to danger. But the other part that happens all the time is how do we repair our body on an ongoing basis? How do we maintain our body? And this is really the concept of self-preservation. Self-preservation is categorized in traditional Chinese medicine, again, not in traditional modern Chinese medicine, since 1950s, but more in the ancient Chinese medicine, as a concept of maintenance strategy. So we have our 12 channels in the body, the regular channels, through the order, starting, with the lungs, large intestine, stomach, spleen, heart, small intestine, bladder, kidney, etc., etc. Pericardium, triple burner, gallbladder, and liver, all the 24 hours, all the 12 channels. So these channels are in charge of our maintenance. And how do they do it? They do it through the same process that every cell in our body does. They do it by detoxifying, by cleaning, a very active role, a role that takes more time, which is fascinating, and they do it by nourishment. So for example, if we look at the basic detox process in the body, exhalation, which is a natural movement of the lungs to contract. If we paralyze the muscles, the lungs will collapse. The exhalation takes twice as longer as the inhalation. We spend twice as time exhaling, detoxifying, than inhaling nourishment. In the body, we have two groups of channels. We have the cleaning channels, the yang channels, right? So every organ will have a couple channels. So you have the lungs for nourishment, the large intestine for removal of stools. We have the stomach for movement of food. We have the spleen, pancreas for nourishment. We have the heart for sending blood. We have the small intestine for absorption and elimination in the same time. right? We have the bladder for letting go of urine. We have the kidney for absorption, right? And we have the pericardium that protects the heart and the triple burners that control all the movement. We have the liver that produces and builds a lot of compounds, and we have the gallbladder that pumps out the bile. So we always have this relationship. So the yang channels detoxify, and the yin channels, yin and yang, nourish. The yang movement, the detox movement, happens more during the day. So it's really good to detox during the day. And the nourishment, the inner cleanup, which is an element of detox, the inner detox, the emotional detox, the psychic detox, happens during the night. If we look at the channels, we'll see that the yin channels are always shorter than the yang channels. It's fascinating. The heart has 9 points, small intestine has 19 points. You know, the lungs has 11 points, the large intestine has 20 points. I mean, the kidney has 27 points, the bladder has 67 points. You always see much longer channel for detox because cleanup takes a longer time. That's really important for us to recognize. The cleanup, the process of letting go takes time. And the cleanup, and we'll talk about it more in the detox chapter next time, and the cleanup includes moving stuff out of the cells, out of the organs, and this is discharging them out and eliminating them from the system. So our body, from a preservation point of view, it's an aspect of survival, very important aspect. Not only the danger fighting aspect, an aspect of maintaining the system so it can survive for a longer period of time. So this happens as we watch any time that big disasters happen, we are dealing with our maintenance. And it's the same thing that happened with emotional stuff. We have big traumas we have to address, and we have small traumas we have to just clean up. Same thing happens. So when we look at this, it goes all the way to the cell membrane. Cell membrane functions in the same way. There is a bilateral movement. Outside, there is more sodium and less potassium, and inside, there is more potassium and less sodium. And it creates a potential on the membrane. So we have different electrolytes that create an electric charge on the membrane, and this electric charge creates a movement. And so we have the membrane that exchanges, detoxifies, and nourishes inside, detoxifies outside, but also we have compounds that are put outside of the cell. For example, compounds that are produced by the cell, like a protein is produced, and then being pushed out to the system, to the extracellular fluid, where it's used for other purposes, right? So let's say the cell gets a message that it needs, that the body needs a certain protein. The message can come from the outside through a signal, but it can come more classically from our DNA that moves to RNA, to messenger RNA, and then, and then to the tRNA, moves to the ribosomal RNA, produces amino acids, gets packaged, and gets excreted. For example, the cell gets a message of danger, the macrophage, it goes into the cell, the DNA gets a message to upregulate the production of galectin-3. It's produced as a protein, and it's shipped out. So there is this exchange where the cell also has an element of nourishment. And in this sense, the cell is contributing not only to its own function, but to the function of the community. And this is still a part of maintenance, of preservation, but what proteins will be produced is based on the status of the cell. So the cell has the opportunity to produce anything and everything, right? We always say anything and everything is possible. Yes, all the DNA is in the cell, but the cell decides based on certain signals, based on certain genetic tendencies, and mainly based on which cells are activated, activated and which cells are shut down through using different methylation processes and histidine. The cells get activated and deactivated. And when they get activated, they produce the protein. So that's fascinating to see how the cell takes in what it wants, releases what it doesn't want, but also contributes to the environment. So we see here an interdependent, a relationship between the cell and its environment, where the cell understands that in order to survive, the environment needs to do well. It has to make a contribution to the maintenance of the whole system. Otherwise, the system is not going to give it what it wants when it needs it. And actually, it really works this way. The body decides there's not enough blood in the body to get to every cell in the body all the time. You know, if somebody has a surgery on their leg, the surgeon can shut down the blood supply if they cool the leg enough for up to an hour or two, and nothing happens because the cells can survive without oxygen for some time. Certain parts like the brain, like the heart, they need blood all the time. They are more spoiled. They are like they are the royalty. They hold our mind thinking, they hold our consciousness. They really are in charge of the whole survival of everything. That's why they need to be nourished, like the bees nourishing the queen. Very interesting to really see it as an analogy. So now we see the cells and we see survival as a preservation. So really, kind of take a moment and just connect with yourself. Just even close your eyes, or you can do it with eyes open. It's great. You can do it both. But actually go into your body. Just try to feel your cells. Certain areas or all, you can feel the buzzing of the cells. And these endless reactions. Every cell can have up to 1 million reactions in a second. Tens of trillions of cells. And it's all one endless movement that is in sync, in harmony. The great, great harmony. And all of it is part of preservation. Truly amazing. So really what is happening in this process of the close to 50 trillion cells that are simultaneously taking care of themselves and exchanging with the environment is this process of detox, transformation. A certain substance is used to create another substance, right? The outcome is different. You take 3 amino acids that are floating, or you take 3 kind of carbohydrate and you turn them into an amino acid. You put them together by getting a certain code, and suddenly you have a product that has life, has activity compared to the single amino acids. That's transformation. You're using the material, the component, and you're ending up with a functional product. And that's part of something that goes on all the time. It's a transformation at the level of maintenance. And this transformation, the quality of this transformation depends on our status. What do I mean? On the cell status. Cell meaning each of our cells. It's really looking at us as one single unit is not exactly accurate because different parts in our body function different. If we hold a certain trauma in our stomach may be contracted and we may feel pain, and we may have an ulcer, or we may have a problem with excretion of hydrochloric acid. Yet, if our kidneys, we have no fear and we are not worried about the future, the kidneys can be very relaxed and spacious. The cells will function in a different way. And somehow all of this has to be balanced. So I want to give you a little bit of an analogy, like a picturesque view of this, but this is really how it works. So if we are in a state of harmony, of balance, versus a state of survival, it will affect what the cell takes in, what the cell puts out, and also what the cell produces and puts into the system. And that's why a problem in one place a survival crisis in one place can end up having a result in a very different place. Amazing studies. They did a study called perfusion injury reperfusion. Okay, it's an area that I'm actually researching. I published a number of papers. When you take and you tie an artery and you stop the supply to a certain organ, and after 20 minutes to half an hour, you open and you reperfuse the organ with the blood, the time that you had hypoxia, lack of oxygen, creates a survival response, an inflammatory response, and often creates damage to the cell that happens over time. That's also what happened in sepsis with organ failure. And because somebody's in sepsis, they're going to shock, they're being resuscitated, but this crisis has a downfall effect. And sometimes it's very tragic. You see somebody who was in sepsis, and now they are fine. But you know they're actually going to die in a few days because their kidneys just got damaged. And the damage is so deep, it just hasn't manifested in full. And this is the outcome of this survival response. So I'm right now focused on sepsis in clinical trials, but the idea of perfusion injury reperfusion happens when we are dehydrated, we don't have enough volume of blood, where in times of hypothermia, in times of sepsis, of course, and when there's a problem with blood supply to a certain area. So for example, people who have a coronary bypass surgery, a coronary artery bypass grafting, CABG, some of them, because they're on the heart-lung machine, will have a perfusion injury reperfusion. Galectin-3 will spike, and these people, if the galectin-3 was high before the surgery, and especially if it was high when they were admitted to the ICU after the surgery, compared to others, will have a higher tendency to have damage to the kidneys, and will need dialysis and will die even. Very significant. It's a very big range. Why am I telling you this as an example? Because this is how a problem in one place can affect us systemically. So for example, in some animal studies they did with this paper, it was a very large paper on 1,200 people. They took, and it was specifically to the kidneys. The kidneys in Chinese medicine, they hold our life essence, our jing. When they did the perfusion injury reperfusion to kidneys of animals, of mice, and they just clamped it for 20 minutes and opened. The 20 minutes message caused a rise in galectin-3, not only in the kidneys, it sent a message to the bone marrow, stimulated the macrophage of the immune system that went into the heart and caused fibrosis, hardening of the heart. When they took animals which were genetically modified not to have galectin-3, it didn't happen. And when they took these animals and they injected galectin-3, the cells that can produce galectin-3, just in the bone marrow, the message from the kidneys went to the marrow and went to the heart. Amazing. And when these animals were given MCP modified to pectin, also the effect was reversed. So you see how a problem in one area affects others. So we can understand it in our body, right? But some people say, what do I care if there is a lot of pollution in India? It's not here. Here the sky is blue. Well, not. We are in one globe. We are in one environment. It's called global warming. And suddenly storms change and hurricanes, etc. It's part of the same process. So I really took a little bit of time to explain this thing about maintenance. But life is not only about survival. It can be for many people. It's a biological life. They grow, they mature, they get a job, they have a family, they reproduce, which is a little bit of our role in evolution. And then they kind of like, they can have some hobbies and they age and they end their life. And really, if you look at their conscious development, not a lot happened. And in these people can have a longevity in how many years they live, but they don't have a longevity from the point of view of how many different things they have done from Chinese medicine point of view, or how much they evolved. So there is a maintenance versus evolution. Maintenance is biological. Everything I described to you is biological processes. It's affected by our emotional status. If we are very stressed, if we are exposed to a lot of emotional toxins, if we're exposed to chemical toxins, it will affect it. And that's why even in maintenance, we want to support it in general, by having a good diet, by having good hydration, by sleeping enough, by finding a way to distress so our sympathetic tone goes down, and by realizing the interconnectiveness between all of us. You can understand the connectiveness within, let's say, the kidneys, between the right side of the right kidney and the left side of the right kidney, between the right kidney and the left kidney. That's wow, that's a distance. But we also have a connection between the kidney and the heart, right? I write about it in the book. And between the lungs and the large intestine, right? So we have these connections that are not as obvious between one organ with one function to nourish, the kidney, and one organ that excretes, the kidney bladder, and decides what to keep. Very different than the heart, right? Opposite. So it's an example how diversity and accepting different opinions, different functions in the body is part of our harmony and survival, right? I kind of want to show you how it affects our geopolitical world. The place we live in, and this inflammatory world is reflected within us, and our own inner inflammation is reflecting in the world. That's amazing. It's a wow, because we have a choice how we react between ourselves and our body, and between us and people around us. And it will have a ripple effect. So let's take in something very similar. I actually never talked about it in such a way, so fun. I'm glad we have this book club. But I'm really showing you something that looks simple, actually is so profound. There's so many layers. I can go for hours now showing you different aspects of this maintenance. But we'll put it aside. Our job, again, is to support it, again, with simple things. And remember, these things like eating a good diet, and removal of heavy metals and mycotoxins and pesticides, and not being exposed to strong radiation and sleeping enough, this is self-preservation. We can be totally self-focused on just on our health. Who cares about anybody else? And we'll still do it. But when we connect to the survival aspect of the heart, to the heart of survival, to the inner connectivity, it actually affects our survival. We know that communities that emphasize love and compassion do better and survive better evolutionally. That's a fact. So caring for each other and opening our heart for each other actually helps survival. And that's why I call this chapter the heart of survival, because that's really in the heart of survival. But if we look at the heart, and I've talked about it so many times, I almost feel bad to talk about it again. If we look at the physiology of the heart, in the heart we shift from detox, from releasing what we don't want from the cell, through the venous system, through the capillaries, to transformation. That's the core of the heart, is a movement from detoxification to transformation. The heart takes everything it gets without discrimination. All the venous blood comes into the heart, and bring it briefly. It doesn't put any receptors. It's an open vein. It takes it in, and when it contracts, it sends all of it, or most of it, 60% of what's in the right chamber, to the lungs. In the lungs, the blood comes, and the lung does exchange, transformation, pulls out the carbon dioxide, puts in the oxygen. The other volatile stuff that has to come out, they come out, right? You can smell garlic in the breath if you eat it. and it goes back to the heart. And what the heart does then? Contracts and nourishes without discrimination. Everywhere. There is no wheeling and dealing. You do this for me, I'll do that for you. The heart's survival is selfless in its definition. Selfless. Only when it contracts and gives blood, it relaxes and it allows the coronary artery outside of the heart in the aorta. As we come out of the heart, if that's the aorta coming out of the heart, on the sides are the coronary arteries, and the blood goes in. So only once the heart gives, it nourishes itself. Totally selfless. It nourishes itself in order to nourish others and as part of nourishing others. So that's very important to understand that selflessness is the ultimate aspect of survival. It's our evolutionary survival. So this evolution requires effort. It doesn't require effort from a biological point of view. We can be the worst people in the world, totally selfish and dishonest and taking advantage of people. Our heart will still take the dirty blood and will give away the clean blood. There are some diseases of the valve that relate to this emotional aspect. I don't want to complicate you with this. It's a little bit, it's semi-esoteric. So biologically, we are wired to accept what other people don't want and give clean blood. But we're getting the help of the universe. But because we are biologically wired to do this, it is much easier to learn how to do it with our consciousness, with our intention, and change the intention from reactivity, from selfish survival to selfless recognition of the interdependence between everything. Because then we're taking a ride on what the heart is doing biologically. And then we move from a very gross, G-R-O-S-S, very coarse level of chemicals and biology and blood cells and proteins. We start moving to energy. We can't see it, we can feel it more easily, the electromagnetic field of the heart. We get the heart to be leading the brain, and we get coherence and synchronicity between the heart and the brain that goes to every cell in our body. And then we put our intention. Our intention by effort, by focus, right? People who will, for example, practice mindfulness, we focus on being calm, or we focus on being relaxed, but focus has effort. Focus actually has holding. And I'll talk about it more next time. Or we get to do it by truly letting go, by being totally opened. And that's part of the unique quality of the heart. And so what the heart offers us from the point of view of evolution is to fix what we came to this world to fix, which is to melt away our fixations, to melt away our identity with the self, to melt away the artificial boundaries that we perceive, to melt away the belief that what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we feel inside is permanent, will never change. It's solid, right? At the core of it is our fear of death, because death is the ultimate letting go. So in this sense, the heart is where we connect with this fixing. It's called, for example, in the Kabbalah, in Judaism, it's called tikkun, letaken, to fix. It will be called finding or connecting with our Buddha nature, that in Buddhism we say it's always been here from the beginning. Or it will be called connecting with the divine within us. Or we are made in the image of God, right? From Genesis, it's all connecting with these qualities that are within us. And this directly relates to the shift from grasping and surviving to opening transforming, letting go. And it's very interesting that the ultimate letting go happens for us when we leave this body. And that's why if you look at experiences of people who have near-death experience, their universal experience, regardless of what they were before, they don't have to be great spiritual masters or meditators, right? It's often these people had a near-death experience and they come back and they become spiritual teachers and they give lectures about this transformative experience. And prior to the near-death experience, they've never thought about it for a minute. It's what happens to us when we die. It's the moment of death. And it's very developed in Buddhism. There's very detailed teachings on the processes, but it has nothing to do with Buddhism. It's what happens to us. And we know that DMT and 5-MO, the substance that creates this experience, is excreted in huge amounts at the time of death. So this near-death experience also sometimes is produced by different psychedelics, right? There's a lot of interest in psychedelics for depression, for preparation for death, and hopefully it won't get abused and we really keep the sacredness of it, and whoever needs it can use it in the right way. I have no experience with it on a personal level, but it definitely, I feel it is going to grow and going to make a contribution. But why does it happen? Like if we look at what these substances do when we look at MRIs of the brain, it moves us to an experience where we let go of the self. We let go of the holding to the survival paradox. So this it's excreted by the pineal gland, but from the perspective of flow of letting go, it sits in the heart. And that's part of the heart-brain connection. That's why when the heart opens and we move into this state of flow without holding, people can have experiences that relate to DMT. And I'll visit it a little bit more when we talk about the last chapter, transforming the survival paradox. The relevance of it is that we can connect with this quality on an ongoing basis, even at the smallest, even at a smaller scale, through meditation, through connecting with our heart, and through absolute letting go. And this is the idea of, in open heart medicine, of the infinite healing potential. A place where the restriction of holding no longer exists. So what is the entry point into this place? And that's kind of when we move to the second part of the book, to talking about conditions. The entry point the entry point here is the acceptance. So really, what's unique for the heart is acceptance. That's really what's really unique about the heart. The heart accepts. And I apologize for kind of going now to condense this in 10 minutes, but what the heck? Hopefully you'll come back, and this is really what we work on in the short Zoom retreats, of course in the face-to-face retreat. Like it's the centerpiece of training in open heart medicine. For example, in the retreat in Hawaii in September, and then there's a longer training where we go and we train the cells to actually function in this way. So really, there are different levels of acceptance. So for example, the concept of equality and of acceptance is very centralized in the great vehicle of Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism. It's called equanimity, the equalness of all. But in the simplest way to comprehend it for our surviving mind is that we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. Think about what each of us go through to feel happy, to feel good, not to suffer, not to have pain, not to struggle. And we realize, wow, we all experience suffering and difficulties. We're actually all in the same boat. Us being happier and somebody else being happier, the other person being happier is not going to take away from us being able to be happy. In fact, if we can get the whole world, every living being in this world right now, to let go of the struggle and holding and open their hearts, right now there are no more wars in the world. In this moment, it will just end. But this tendency is so inherent in us to hold that it's a little bit of an utopian wish, but in the potential, in its essence, it exists. And that's why people who develop this and are able to radiate this can affect people around us. And that's why, that's what happened in a group retreat, like in a face-to-face retreat, but you can even feel it in a Zoom. You can even feel now, if all of you kind of put your hands on your heart, just feel the warmth of the heart and just open your hand and send this energy to everyone. Let's do it one more time. Put your hands in your heart. And you open and you kind of hug everybody who is listening. Take them to your heart. You can feel how there's a certain level of warmth and openness. Literally, you can feel it in the room around you. So again, this maybe 30, 40 years ago, people would laugh about it. Now it's science. We know about this interdependence. We know about amplification of this feeling. It's solid science now. Still on the cutting edge a bit, but it's there. So all of this will have profound effects on our health. It's important to really understand. So we can understand this concept of everyone wants to be happy. And when we train in it, we start by wanting people that we like to be happy, which even this is not always easy, right? Jealousy comes up. And then people that we don't have an opinion about to be happy. And then slowly, if we can expand to adversaries of ours, that they would be happy. Because when somebody is happy, they are less reactive. And they are less reactive, they don't hurt themselves as much, and they don't hurt others as much. And then we end up benefiting from this. Like His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, to be selfless is a very good thing from a selfish point of view. It works for us, if that's the motivation. That's the principle of Tonglen meditation, but not the topic today. And then, so that's something that is very easy to understand. And that's why the concept of contemplation and acceptance of suffering and difficulty is at the basis of developing this quality. And this quality will affect our heart physiology and will give a sense of safety and balance and harmony and warmth to all the cells in our body, because the electromagnetic field of the heart gets all the time to every cell in our body. And what it will do? It will change the cell receptors on the membrane. It will change the message to inside the cell what protein it needs. It will change our metabolism. And what happens? We'll feel better, we'll live longer, we'll be happier. So it actually comes back all the way to the cells. The same cell that is doing this. On a deeper level, we understand so maybe before we go on the deeper level, the ways that we work on this is that we contemplate this idea. Contemplate, we take it in, like we nourish ourselves with this idea conceptually. Don't be hard I'm not going to be hard with myself because I'm having difficulties. I mean, instead of fighting and feeling guilty and bad, I'll just send love to myself and other people, and then we let go. And when we let go, when we create this space between our thought process, between our mental process, in this gap, our physiology changes, right? For the cell to contract, it needs to relax. It's the calcium-magnesium channels in the cell. For something to happen, we need to let go. And that's the process of simple contemplation. We can remind ourselves, very simple, nothing spiritual, nothing special, and doesn't take training. On a deeper level, we can understand we can comprehend, we can contemplate, and we can experience that the ever-changing, impermanent nature of everything that arises outside and inside. What is called in Buddhism the empty nature of everything. That is empty of solid, non-changing, finite state. It always changes. This is basic science. No arguing. Regardless of what expresses itself, there is always equalness in everything. And this is really the secret door to spiritual awakening. It's more than a lifetime of work. And most of us, almost all of us, will get only part of the journey. And it has different aspects. But really, for people who are really into meditation, especially people on the Buddhist path, then it allows us to recognize, to rest in this original state, original purity of everything that arises, while being engaged in different details. Regardless of their expression, it takes away the separation between a state of mind when something good is happening and when something bad is happening. When we have a response of love, or we have a response that we are upset. It just will come and go away. So this is a much, much deeper aspect, but that's part of what the heart offers us. It's hard to come by, very hard to come by, because we hold so strong. And as hard as it is to come by, it's really very simple, because it's really who we are. And this principle, the principle of working with this, is built into different meditation practice, spiritual practices, and even different religions. They use this principle sometimes unknowingly. You know, each of us, all of us, most of us have a belief system. We believe in something. It doesn't mean that we saw it, that we studied this. It's a belief we have. And then we have faith. We have, you know, people have faith in God, people have faith in Buddha, people have faith in Allah, people have faith, you know, in Hinduism, whatever the faith is. And when we feel faith, we feel it in our heart. We don't feel faith in our head. We feel it in our heart. And when we have faith that is not substantiated by a true experience, then often, if it's just a part of learning and we are allowed to discriminate, it's good. But often we are not allowed to doubt, right? They tell you, if you doubt, you're going to go to a bad place, right? We are scolded if we doubt. So what is happening when we have faith, we are in our heart. And when we doubt, we go to our head. Now you're listening to me, oh, Isaac, this what nonsense. Oh my God, this is amazing, right? You go through this, you go in your head. You don't go in your heart. Oh, this is amazing. Oh, this is terrible. You go in your head. So this process of faith without giving the space for doubt pushes us. It's a forced, effortful way to bring us to our heart, actually. Even in creating guilt feelings, supposedly, there's an element of pushing us energetically, physiologically to our heart. It's quite amazing. It's very, very subtle and not subtle, but as I was preparing, I was realizing, wow, that's really neat. But if we meditate or we do prayer or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be my meditation or your meditation, and we have an experience of this, we start getting confidence. So confidence comes from meditative experience of any kind. And when the confidence is stable, where it doesn't get lost, where we don't lose, when this openness is not lost in the chain of sensations that come from the outside, or feeling and emotions and thoughts that come from the inside. I'm talking here to very few people. I apologize if you are lost. If you are not lost, then something is wrong, okay? Then we have unshakable confidence. It's not unshakable because we can't shake it like this. It's unshakable because we have this experience stable. So this is the concept of unshakable confidence. And this is where we can start to operate in ordinary life, doing ordinary tasks, like, like eating and preparing food and cleaning the house and having a business meeting, okay, and dealing and going to the bank and talking to lawyers. And in spiritual extraordinary realms, where we meditate, where it's amazing, where we're in nature, and we actually operate in the same way. Because we are introduced to this equalness of everything. So, wow, did I load on you these concepts? I apologize. This is a part that, if you revisit like 5 years, 10 years from now, you'll see, wow, there's a lot here. It all starts from the acceptance of the heart. So I gave you today a little bit of a broader understanding of what acceptance here is. One of the issues that throws us away from acceptance and that project us into past events and have past events affect our present experience. So we can't just accept and open, are traumas. So traumas are a huge, huge, huge topic. I had a webinar about it. I think it was just before in May. I do recommend for people interested in traumas to listen to it. And I do plan to actually create a whole training on traumas and how to heal from traumas. It's going to be like a few courses at a time. I hope to work in the very near future. So within it, we now understand that the ability of the heart to share without discrimination, to express love and compassion to all, starts with a place of acceptance, of equanimity. And that's why certain training in meditation, in love and compassion, so for example, from a certain branch of Buddhism called Great Perfection, which we used 30 years ago to not even mention the name, but now it's kind of all over, starts by setting this quality of equanimity, of equalness, right? People who came to my meditation, after we clean the breath, we exhale, and we just let go. And we bring in this contemplation that all beings want to be happy and all beings experience suffering. What we are doing there, we're not trying to just develop a compassionate response. We are actually trying to set up the stage for this quality of equalness. So when there is acceptance, acceptance is the prerequisite for forgiveness. And forgiveness drives love and compassion in a clearer, purer way. And this will have a profound effect on our body, and especially a profound effect on cells that no longer forgive, that no longer have compassion, that just want to fight and conquer and have self-preservation at any cost, including destruction of the environment. We see this geopolitically, and we see it in our body. It's called cancer. And this is the movement into the second part of the book, which we didn't touch today, and we'll touch in the third part, as we have a lot to cover last time, and I may end up having one more meeting. So I want to thank all of you for being with me. And kind of as we landed in our heart, we can kind of again put our hands and just feel our heart accepting and opening, and anything that you benefited, you just offer it and just take it in back into your heart, and then share it with everybody that you are connected to. So thank you for the opportunity to listen in a little bit greater depth about the survival paradox. I hope it was useful for you.